Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Picnic Table Chat Show. It is season 8, episode 10, and tonight I'm going to answer a few of the questions that I get sent regularly in your emails. But before that, I've got a couple of other things to go over. Firstly, I'm going to mention a little bit of a warning. We might get invaded by my youngest daughter. She is currently on the inside house swing. Yes, we have a swing inside the house. She's currently on the swing, very lively, and my wife is reading our middle daughter a bedtime story. So we might get invaded, but we'll carry on. It will be good fun. And the other thing is, another little warning is, we're really weird on the signal tonight. It's just dipping in and out. Don't know if you noticed the music speeding up and speeding down. Is that right? Speeding down, slowing down. There we go. Speeding up, slowing down. Kind of sounded demonic as it slowed down. Well, at least it did my end. It made me giggle a little bit whilst I'm here in the office this evening. But how is everyone? Thank you for joining. Thank you, Jack, joining there on Facebook. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the show shortly. I've got that on the list. I'm going to answer the questions first, and then we'll talk about the show and a few other things afterwards. So do stay watching for that. We won't be talking too long. Well, we will probably. You know me, I go off topic a lot. How is everyone? What's everyone been up to? Good evening, Antisocial. Thanks for joining. Thank you everyone for joining. There's quite a few people in the chat at the moment. Very exciting for me. It's nice to have you all there chatting, and makes my life easier if you've got something to say back, you know what I mean. So if you do have any questions that you want to throw in, as well as the other ones that I'm answering, feel free to chuck them at any point and I'll to them. to mention is the Bristol raffle is now live, so you can get tickets for the raffle for Bristol via the merchandise page on the website, or if you go on the homepage, anywhere that says raffle or there's a picture of raffle, just click on it and it'll take you straight there. They're going to be drawn on the Bristol main stage probably. I haven't quite decided because there's not a lot of space left on the main stage. It is packed all day until like 2:30 or something like that, maybe closer to 3 o'clock, and then we might have time on the main stage. But yeah, we're going to do the raffle at Bristol. All the money goes towards the Bristol show sort of pot. Obviously, we are non-profits. It all goes into donations and things like that. Why not get involved? There's some brilliant prizes. There's already like 9 prizes or something like that. Some really cool prizes coming up already. So check it out. And that is the last I'm going to talk about that for now. Let's answer somebody's questions. Oh, hello, Evie. So we've been invaded already. Told you it might happen, but she's all right. She's got the wife's phone. She's just come in to say hello because she got lonely. Let's answer a couple of these questions that I routinely get sent. I've actually got how many? I've got 8 questions here that I get sent quite often. Not all the time, quite often. Often enough for me to say, well, let's do that tonight. Right. So the first one is, what feeders do you use? And like, how do you do it? And this is actually really simple. Good evening, JB. Really simple. For me, I mainly use wax worms. I mean, I do use dubia roaches as well for my larger colonies, and obviously pinkies, and even in this colony, I use pork chops now. But I mainly use wax worms, and that is just because the ease of keeping them. If you keep them in the fridge, they last absolutely ages. They're not that dirty, not that prone to getting mites. They don't fight back. They're generally pretty easy as a feeder. Roaches are my next thing. I do keep a roach colony literally to the side of me right now, and there's normally a few thousand in there. I've started running a bit short at the minute because I had some big orders go out, but I'll go let them grow back. And they're in a natural sort of setup, but they do have egg boxes in there as well, so they sort of have that medium ground of it. They're doing quite well. I mean, roaches are fairly easy. Once you get them going, they're pretty much hard to stop. So they're always doing quite well, and they are brilliant feeders. Yeah, waxworms don't smell either. Whereas like something like mealworms, we'll talk about mealworms properly in a minute. Mealworms do tend to smell, and they do get mites quite often as well. Dubia roaches are good, and obviously if you fatten them up nicely, feed them a few days before you use them as feeders, they're really nice and juicy and great for your ant colonies, great for other invertebrates as well. And again, they don't really fight back. They have got more of a nature they can bite, and obviously if you have an invertebrate or something that's molting, then it's probably not a good idea to chuck your roach in there. But generally, roaches aren't too bad. Going to start another roach colony with red runners. Our red runners are absolutely awesome. Thank you for coming in, Ants Major. You went to BTS today. That was, well, you're going to have to let us know. Send us some comments about how it was. I've heard from lots of different people about how it was. Obviously, I didn't get to go. It's just too far for me to go, especially with our show last week. It's just a long old wait. I don't even drive. So like, if someone offered me a lift, I would go definitely, but you know what I mean. It's a long old haul. Well, how was it? It seemed pretty busy. I'll say that, or very busy. Some amazing traders there, some really cool looking stalls. Everyone seemed really happy with the day so far. So yeah, let me know your experience. The other thing that obviously is really easy as a feeder are flightless fruit flies, and it's actually something I don't use that often. I've started using it more now. I've got mantises, I've got the tadpole, and things that require such a small thing. The jumping spider as well, obviously. But I didn't tend to use them very often. I'll tell you why. They get mites really easy. Like, I tend not to let them live their whole lifetime because you can keep them going for quite a while, really. But I tend to let them get to a certain stage, and then I quite often freeze all the flies and just use them like that, let them fall out and use them like that, rather than let them be live. I do like to feed them the live fruit flies because you get a really good reaction, especially from this colony in front of you. But again, it's just that risk the mites and the dirt, and it's just a bit of a pain sometimes. Good evening, Ant Farm Supplies. Thanks for coming in. Right, let's read this comment. It was all right. I'm not super bothered by tarantulas these days, but got another feathered leg baboon, and I was starting to get a little bit into my tarantulas. Right, I've now got 3. 2 of them are versicolors, one of them's an adult male, and the other one is my pokey, and they're all absolutely awesome. I mean, I've started branching out into all sorts of different things away from the ants, but obviously ants are always my favorite. But yeah, it's nice to sort of have other interests as well as the ants, I suppose. We're going to put that one up. Boosh. Yeah. So generally what I do with my feeders is I will boil them. So it's quite hard to boil fruit flies. Simple as that. Whereas roaches and things like that, I literally just dip in hot water for 30 seconds, not even 30 seconds, 3 seconds, and it just gets rid of all those extra pests. Now, as I'm talking to you, I've got a Polyrhacus dive queen walking down the tripod thing of my microphone. It's literally inches away from my face right now. Hello, Queenie. I'll let her go. I'm not worried. I'll just let her do her thing. Queens and males and queens, I don't know if you know this, they cannot sting. Basically, their genitalia is what would be the stinging part of the ant, the worker ant. So they cannot sting. They might give you a little bite, might give you a little nip, but again, their jaws aren't as powerful as those worker ants, which are specialized for the job. So you don't really have to worry too much when an ant comes over to bite you, or a queen ant comes to bite you, or whatever, or when there's queen ants about. I mean, I was in the bathroom literally before the stream, and there was a queen ant sat in the corner of the bathroom. Now this is upstairs in a whole other area of the house. And it's like, wow, they're getting about, but we don't worry. We'll collect them up, and if they take off their wings, we'll wait and see what happens. Put them in a test tube, wait and see what happens. If they're viable, they might end up in someone else's hands. You know what I mean? Because they can't go back in this colony. This colony will rip them to pieces. Even if they mate within the colony, they quite often decide to just tear them apart. I suppose their pheromones change as they become fertile, and the workers just go for them. Yeah, okay, Paul, that is actually a really good idea, but it's not always the great for different plants. Some plants don't do well in it, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to try and pronounce it because I've been trying to pronounce that word for many, many years, and I've never been able to get it right. Yeah, okay, some species can still sting, mainly semi-claustral ones, but in general, their genitalia is the stinging part of the insect. But again, right, so what I tend to do with it is I tend to put it on the tinfoil, cut it up, put it on tinfoil. That just keeps everything nice and clean. I haven't bothered doing it with this giant pork chop in front of you because it's a bioactive situation. The springtails and whatnot in the enclosure will deal with it. But generally, I tend to cut up the feeders, put them on a little piece of tinfoil and feed it like that. In fact, my shelf unit here, I've got something like 32 colonies on the shelf at the moment. And what I do is I start off by ripping little squares of tinfoil, and then I get all the feeders and get all the squares lined up and go round like that because there's so many of them to do. It's quite a lot of work, you know. And I do the same when I do the test tubes. It's just slightly smaller squares. I do tend to avoid using crickets. Now, I tell you why. Crickets are great feeders, like protein wise. They've got tons of protein in them, but they can be a pain. They're really dirty and full of mites really often, especially if you get them from like a Pets at Home or something. They tend to have a mite situation going on. So I tend to avoid them for that reason, but they can also fight back. No matter how hard you kill these things, they come back to life, and if they get hold of your ants, they will tear them to pieces. It's not cool. Never feed a live cricket to a colony unless you're into that sort of thing, but I don't do it. Cricket, in fact, I put a boiled cricket into Polyrhacus dive colony once. It came back to life and ate 3 of them, so I got in there and tore its head off. One cricket once got out, because you know they're really good at jumping, that's what crickets do. It got out and it got under the bed, and the wife was not happy for about a week until I caught it. Luckily, it was like fairly easy to catch. If you ever have one escape, this is how I did it. I literally got some of the ant candies. I put it in a dish in the middle of the room, and I sat there and waited, and I waited, and literally I looked at it at night, and it was probably about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Just looked at it, and there it was, just having a drink of the ant candy. So boosh, done, caught it. And yeah, annoying. Crickets are really annoying for that reason, but they are great for protein. So if you want to deal with crickets, again, go for it, but boil the hell out of them. Chop their head off. Make sure they're dead before you stick them in with your hands. Mealworms, Mario worms. I do use Mario worms occasionally, but I only use them when I know like, I only gonna have Mario worms about when I know I'm going to use them, because they're filthy. I keep them in bioactive situations where you end up with loads of. Good evening, Jason. Thanks for coming in. I will go over that in a second. Ant farm supplies. Yeah, you end up with loads of these beetles that you can see in here running about, but that's fine as long as you're okay with dealing with beetles. They can climb, not really climb glass, but they can climb things. So they do have a tendency to occasionally get out. They can't fly, but they can glide downwards. And yet they stink. They really do stink. The bioactive situation sort of deals with that, but again, then you have to dig them out when you want them. So my Mario worm farm, I tend to keep more beetles than worms. But it is what it is. So we do use Mario worms over here, but on very sparing occasion. I tend to avoid mealworms because they are very small, and I don't see the point in them. Even for an ant colony, they're small. Like, you can't eat the exoskeleton. So by the time you've got if you get a mealworm, right, squeeze the guts and juice out of the mealworm, there's not much there. I'd much rather use the Mario worm, which has that little bit more. It's probably got like 4 mealworms worth per, not quite, but you know what I mean. There's quite a lot of Mario worm compared to mealworm, and they all stink. So I'd rather just use. Yeah, that's just how I am. But you can use mealworms. Mealworms are great for feeders. Again, full of protein, but they just stink and they're disgusting. So I tend not to. Like, the best feeder, in my opinion, is whatever you have the budget for, to be honest, because dubia roaches are brilliant, but they can get expensive, especially if you're feeding like 30 colonies dubia roaches every day. It will be very, very expensive. Waxworms are far more economical, and they're easy. And again, they're just one of my favorites. So I would go between the dubia roach or waxworm, depending on your budget and your sort of goals, size of the colony as well. If you're feeding 50 waxworms 2 times a week to an ant colony the size of this one on the screen, then again, it's not economical. There's no sense to it, because you're literally like, I was pouring in waxworms in the end, and they couldn't get enough. And as you can see, now I just spend like £1 something on a pork chop, and it lasts them, and they're happy with this pork chop. I put this pork chop in 2 days ago. 2 days. It was in about 5 or 6 different pieces. You can see 3 of the pieces here. One of the pieces is completely gone. The 2 pieces at the top of the screen there are pretty much just bone, and this piece at the bottom of the screen is about a third of the size that it was. The other piece is basically just fat, and the other piece, they're on it, but they haven't had as much, but it is really far away from the bridge. So it's quite interesting how fast, like last time, it took them almost a week to get through a whole pork chop. So it's definitely getting faster. And as you can see, they've devoured all the sugars. Now they're completely gone. So I've got to give them another test tube of sugars, and somehow I've got to get that test tube out and all the ants out, which they don't like doing. They're not easy to get out, and there's a lot of ants. I get bitten a lot by this colony. It tends to be sort of a running joke. I'm going to get bit. It is what it is. Right, let's have a little my ants always ignore Mario worm. Yeah, okay. Some ants will prefer different things. Some ants will just completely ignore waxworms even. That's really annoying. And you'll find some ants don't care, especially when they get to a larger stage. When they're in these larger stages, they tend to go for anything. I mean, I'm not going to say a dead body. I was going to say put a dead body in, but I could probably put a lot of different things in there, and they would just disappear. If the ants don't get them, the isopods or the beetles or something else will. The crabs will, or something like that. Didn't use your worms that quick and had them start flying around. Yeah, the ants also. What? Well, I'd be bojiggered. That light has been on the shelf for probably a good year or so, and for some reason it's just fallen off. I'm going to say it's ghosts. I don't actually believe in ghosts, but I have no logical explanation, so we're going with ghosts. Ooh, scary. I'll put a sheet over myself, knock that other one off, then it's ghosts. Right, what was I on about? Yeah, they absolutely love the moths as well if they can catch them in an enclosed environment. Obviously, it's really easy. In a big tank like this, they tend to fly about for ages. But when the dives get hold of one of those moths, they tear them to pieces. They are quite what's the word? Fluffy. So you end up with quite a bit of a mess sometimes, but it is what it is. Like if one of them gets away, that's a very lucky waxworm. In fact, I had a Mario worm get away from. I don't know how it actually got in there because I don't feed them like Mario worms. Right, so in the bullet ant enclosure, there was at one point they decided to dig down. I did a short on it, I think, or a video or something. They decided to dig down and they found a pupated Mario worm, and it was almost a beetle, and they like excavated loads, good few inches of soil all the way around it, dug it out and tore it to pieces. It was really, really cool. But it was like, wow, how did they even find it? It was like buried. So they obviously sense of vibrations or smell or something, and they found it, and it was pretty damn cool. Can you get perfect to the air? Sort of. I'm not sure. Paramagnetic headed ants. I don't think, Jason. There's 56 registered ant species in the UK at the moment, Jason. I don't think that's one of them. It's not one I recognise as one of our native. I can never eat in my house. Yeah, Ant Major. It's not rotting because so I thought after the week run, the one that we did before, I thought like you, it would rot, but it didn't. It sort of just dries out, and like now it's actually just dried out. I suppose the springtails, the air, everything like it's quite warm in here all the time. Um, but it's not humid. It's quite a dry warm in this room, so it just it's not rotted the meat. It's just sort of dries it out and it doesn't do it. It doesn't smell at all either because I was prepared to take the last one out before the week's end, but it didn't smell. Trust me, my wife comes in here, she sits with me. If it smelt, she would make me take it out. Okay, thank you, Aunt Dorset, for clarifying that for us. Very rare. Yeah, there you go. Only meat I fed my ants. Rabbit, that's really interesting. See, I basically got the idea of the pork chop because one, they needed a lot of meat and it's cheap to buy a pork chop rather than like 50 roaches or whatever. But two, out in the wild, and this is why I didn't cook it, out in the wild, they just come across like a dead cow or something. They'd eat whatever they came across. So yeah, give it a go. I've heard of ants eating tuna, ham, all sorts. My only advice is if you're going to use human foods, don't have them like marinated in anything or any sauces or spices or anything like that. Just give them a plain meat like they'd have out in the wild. That's my advice. You don't have to stick to that because I have no experience of what would happen if you did do it. None whatsoever. But it's just something I've stuck to since doing it myself is no spices or sauces. They don't need a sweet and sour curry or you know what I mean. They're quite happy with meat. Ask Tom if anyone knows hydrostone. Yeah, I'm still eating on hydrostone sauces. I'm surprised it's not actually one that is easy to source, not at a good price, anyways. I could get it, but you'd almost be paying what shops would charge. You know what I mean? I'll find it. I can find everything. I will find everything. I'm just sometimes you have to wait a while for people to get back to you, especially the ones in other countries. Like they don't work to the same time scale as us, let alone the same like hours and stuff. You know what I mean? So sometimes it takes a while. I mean, one guy I work with occasionally, he takes about a month to get back to me every time. But when he does, it's gold. It's pure golden the whole way. You know what I mean? Some leftover bolognese and the mess of some tomato sauce. That's how did they do with that? See, I've seen people give them Snickers bars and all sorts, and I just haven't got the guts to do it. What if something went wrong and it killed my whole colony? I would be devastated. What is that? Okay, okay, it's cool. I've just stood on a piece of cardboard, and it really felt sharp, but it wasn't sharp. It's just the edge of cardboard. Sorry, a little bit distracted then. Right, so let's crack on with another question that I get asked occasionally via email. Okay, this was a good one. I didn't choose all of these either. I had my wife and my kids help involve themselves. Right, so this one says, I don't want Nigers or Barbarous. I've had them before. What would I advise next? That's a really interesting question, and actually, it is something I get asked really regularly because you kind of go through the phases. Everyone kind of goes through the Niger phase when they start. That beetle better get up, otherwise he'll be eaten. Go on, Sancho, get up, get. Yes, he's all right. He's all right, everyone. He's all right. Um, everyone sort of goes through the Nigers, and then we go Flavorous and Barbarous and those sort of stages, don't we? But then where do you go from there? What is the next ant? And there's lots of different options, obviously, as you all know. But I tend to say you want something. Ant Farm Supplies has already got it. I say you want something exciting, large, so go with Nikos. Nikos or Polybacchus dives. Polybacchus dives take a little bit more care, a little bit more attention. Nikos are fairly easy still. So if you want to make that jump and start really diving into the learning things, then go for dives. If you want to stick with another fairly easy ant, but something really exciting, then I say go with Nikos. Nikos are brilliant at Camponotus, but although they're Camponotus, they're not slow. Most Camponotus species, like 90% of Camponotus species, and it is one of the biggest genuses, bear in mind. Most Camponotus species are really slow to grow, especially in that earlier stage. But Nikos are just something else. They're fast growing. They can be multiple queen, which is another thing it's not there, but it's not common amongst I forgot the word Camponotus. And yeah, Nikos are just great. They've got a great look to them. They're really aggressive and just great personalities. I've got my Nico colony currently in a Ants Canada large ant tower and outworld sort of setup that I got given. I didn't pay for that setup because shipping is crazy, but I did get given it, so that was cool. And doing really well. They really do well in bioactive environments, but they do pretty well in most environments. I've seen both acrylic and white on be used. Now, to bear in mind, they do have a need to chew through. If you've got the and things like that through, keep an eye on that. I find using cotton is actually really good because when you start seeing lots and around the outworld, that's when you know you need to replace the cotton, basically. That's a really good question, Paul. What is the quickest growing species? And out of all of them, it was probably be the American fire ant, possibly, or one of the monomorium species. Now, monomorium, because we all know about the fire ant, I'm not going to go into that massively, but monomorium are really invasive as well. They're absolutely super tiny, but they breed loads and loads of queens for the amount of workers, if you know what I mean. They breed, don't use these as an exact because it's just a a generalization, but if you say they breed one queen for every 10 to 20 workers that they produce, eventually you end up with a colony of billions of queens and even trillions of ants, and they just keep growing and growing and growing at an exponential rate. But obviously, Gemini are known for their speed and growth. But Gemini are more notorious because of their destructiveness, their size and aggressiveness towards humans. So they are a massive, massive issue, and that is why they get the publicity of being fast growing. But I would say it is highly contested between the ghost ants and things, pharaoh ants, and anything in the monomorium genus is probably just as fast growing, and they much larger colonies. They don't pose such a threat to the environment or you and I, so they don't really get looked at as much, I'd say. But it's a highly debated one, I'd say. Like, we could sit here all night going, I've seen a bigger colony of this and a bigger colony than that. But it's one of them. Ants grow to stupid numbers. Speed, I don't know. Speed, I don't know. I'm going to say it's between Geminato and Monomorium. That's all I'm going to say. Otherwise, I'll be here all night. Let's move on to another question, shall we? Question 3. This is what I got given. Can I get the ants from my garden and just use them? Well, you can, but the likeliness that you're going to get a queen, unless it's obviously nuptial time, you're going to dig up a colony and try and get a queen. Now, Lacey's niger, they can nest up to 15 feet down. When they go into hibernation, 15 feet below the soil ground, it tends to be like the same temperature range, no matter what temperature it is on top. So they will be aiming to dig down that deep in a really mature colony. So the likeliness that you're going to find the queen, quite low. The likeliness you're going to go for the workers, quite high. Workers they tend to not do a lot because they don't have a purpose, unless you've got brood and stuff for them to care for, in which case they will obviously go out and forage and feed the brood. But once that brood's grown after 6 to 8 weeks, they tend to stand still a lot. Have anything to do, the queen's meant to produce the eggs, and the eggs need caring for by the workers. That is pretty much their entire goal, and if you take away the eggs and the queen, they've got nothing left. So it is, it's one of them. It is doable, but it's only a short-term thing, really. Once the workers get past a few months, depending on the species, they tend to die anyways. So yeah, I would always advise getting a queen unless you're sort of in an educational situation where you're just giving them a colony for a few weeks. Then yes, by all means, go grab some ants from outside. I used to do it myself, and it is actually how I started ant keeping. For the first few years, I didn't have a queen because there wasn't really queens available online when I started. Or there was, but it was like £140 on eBay, and it came with no guarantees or nothing. It was a bullet ant queen, to be fair, but you know what I mean. It's just one of them. I looked at it and I was like, I'm not even gonna bother. So I had ants without queens for years and years and years, and it is doable. Now, one thing you have to think is obviously ethics, digging up a colony on the outside. We do it. Gardeners do it. It's done every day, and the ants will rebuild and recover. They're very industrious like that. But do you want to go and do the destruction? As an ant keeper, I struggle to go and destroy other ants, but it is what it is. As if I go out to work and someone says that needs digging up, it is what it is. I will try and move it, but it is what it is. You got to do it, Oh dear, but yeah. So generally, you can get them, but if you want a good colony, don't get them from your garden. Not just that, you could always bring in like pets and other stuff. You just don't know what you're dealing with. So let's move on to the next question. Number 4, what is the best setup for ants that escape? Right, okay, this is something actually I get asked quite frequently. especially when I've sold a monomorium or tetramorium or something like that. And they're like, how am I supposed to keep these? In fact, Sharon was the best. Sharon bought I think it was 4 queen or 6 queen colony of monomorium with like 100 workers or something. And within 2 or 3 days, like the first day, she messaged me like, oh, these are really cool. There's loads of them. They're really cool. Loads of brood, whatever. And then a couple of days later, she's like, I'm overrun. They're just getting out. They're getting out through the air holes. They're getting out through the... She could not contain them, and it was brilliant. So my advice basically is stick whatever you've got to set up, like whatever setup you decide to use, they're probably going to get out of. Stick it in a big old box, like a big box. You want it tall. Now, I say tall because the more wall space you've got to put barrier, the better. Like, I advise putting like Vaseline, then followed by PTF and oil, and then the talc barrier. Just use it all. Every different type of barrier, because they will get through pretty much every barrier after a bit of time, but this gives you more time to react and replace the barriers and so on. So the talcum powder, they will get through because they'll just keep attacking it until it's gone. They'll put stuff on the Vaseline to be able to cross it, like their own dead bodies and stuff. And generally they will get through most things, but just give yourself that time, be vigilant, be a confident keeper. Once you've got your confidence about you and you know what you're doing, it's not an issue. It's when you start doubting yourself, am I able to keep these? You know, yes, you can. You just need to think about it. So giving yourself a much taller setup. Go get one of those big Tupperware boxes that we use for storage under our beds and under our beds. But like, you know, the big one, Wilkinson's, the check. Get one of them. Cover the wall of it in Vaseline, anything like that, and it should keep them in. Now, I've got currently on my shelves, I've got monomorium. I've got 2 different species of monomorium there. I've got tetramonium bicars. I've got lots of invasive, really hard to keep in species, and I don't tend to have any issues. Actually, at the moment, we've got the tetramonium bicars are escaping, but that's my fault. I didn't replace the barrier. Now that's done, they're much more under control again. The monomorium, they never escape. They're easy as heck, as long as you do it right. I will be selling queens from the Polyrhachis dive colony. I always wait to see if they start laying eggs and they're viable, because although I can literally watch them having the mating session on the nest. Like you could come here any time of day pretty much and see a queen surrounded by males, and without going into detail, she's coming out the other side of it. You know what I mean? She should be fertile, and then I'll get her in a test tube and she'll even rip her wings off, but not guaranteed to lay. I've only had, out of probably 70 odd queens that we've got, I've probably only had 30 lay, if that. They do go up for sale occasionally. You kind of have to keep your eyes open on the website because they go up and they tend to go really fast. I do have people which check on the website daily. I have people which have told me they do that because they know I do these sorts of things. It's the same with the monomorium. The best thing to do is actually to text me. If you know I've got these colonies, text me, because I don't tend to put them on the website all the time. Like monomorium and the tetramonium, I don't put on the website all the time because they are so invasive. I don't just sell them to anybody. You have to know what you're doing. Again, using these tips that I'm telling you, tool setup, all the different types of barriers you can get, being alert and confident with your movements is all part of it. And then I'll sell you a monomorium. You know what I mean? Because we don't want them getting out. We don't want invasive ants taking over people's houses and getting in their walls, because if that happens and it's about to be summer, you are literally going to lose your house. Like, monomorium are difficult. But yes, so we will be selling more Polyrhachis. In fact, I've got about 12 on the shelf right now. And like I say, I've got that one queen that's walking around in front of me and another queen that's upstairs. So we'll see what happens with them. I've got about 12 on the shelf right now, which I'm waiting to see if they tear their wings off and start laying eggs. Obviously, Polyrhachis aren't actually that easy to get found in. They quite often need a little bit of a get-go. In fact, the best thing to do is to capture a queen with a couple of workers, and hopefully they will not kill her. Quite often they do. It's something I've learned. It's not easy, it's very kind of finicky. The workers can be very iffy about it. Putting them in the fridge doesn't tend to help either. I've tried that, putting them in the fridge with the workers and the freshly caught queen, and they still tear her apart. So it's one of those. They don't always. It is one of those. In fact, I sold someone. This was probably November time last year. I sold someone 8 queen Polyrhacus dive colony with 10 workers out of this colony, and that's going as a very successful colony. Probably soon going to be rivaling this one, to be honest, because it is just out of hand growing. It's just crazy. I don't think he does YouTube videos on it. I don't think he's ever shown it. He just sort of enjoys his own ants, But yeah, absolutely crazy. I wouldn't know what to do with 8 queens. Like this was 3 queens. One of them died, so it was 2 queens. And look at how big it is. Now they've had like nearly a 9-month nuptial flight going on inside the nest. Obviously, not all the ants, all the queens leave. Quite often they get reabsorbed back into the nest. I have no idea how many queens are in there laying right now. Probably quite a few. It is what it is. I say that a lot at the moment. It is what it is. Just whatever. I can't be asked. So let's move on with the next question. And this one looks like a 2-parter because it's got a line between 5 and 6. So we're gonna read them both. My ants aren't laying. What should I do? And how often should I check on my queen? Okay, I can see why these are linked. So my ants aren't laying. What should I do? You're probably checking on them too often. That's why they're linked. Not always, there's other reasons why your queen probably isn't laying. There's plenty of reasons, but the one you will tend to find, especially as a new keeper, is you're looking at them too often. If you've got just a queen, there's really no need to look at her. She's completely fine. Naturally, in the wild, she won't come out to eat. She won't come out to do anything. She will stay in that claustral chamber until the workers do everything for her. She's done the hard part. She's had 10 men enjoy her presence or whatever. That's the hard part for her. And then she goes off and goes and sits in a little dark hole, thinks about the things she's done, waits for the workers to come and do everything else for her. Oh dear. So, there's no real need to keep checking on her to make sure she's okay, because the likeliness is she's okay. She would have fed up on stores. Now, I am talking claustral ants, not obviously semi-claustral. That's a whole nother matter. But obviously, she would have fed up on food before leaving. She's got her stores. Don't panic. She'll be fine. The best thing, obviously, we all know it as ant keepers, stick them in that test tube, leave them in the test tube, in the dark, on a shelf, leave them alone. Just leave them alone. Forget about them. They're not even there. 8 weeks later, make sure you've got an alarm set, because if you're like me and you've actually forgotten that they're there, you need an alarm set occasionally. 8 weeks later, go back, and the likeliness is you'll have workers, or you're just about to. And if you're just about to, they're less likely to eat that brood as well. So, that's my advice. And people get, I think, a little bit annoyed because I say it quite bluntly. So just put them on the shelf for 8 weeks. Just stop. Stop whatever you're doing, because whatever you're doing is too much. Sometimes they do need that little bit of protein top up, especially if they've had a couple of fails. Sometimes they need a little bit of carbs, or it's just nice to give them a little bit of carbs. But it is normally just a matter of they've been too disturbed, or the conditions aren't quite right, heating wise. Humidity, they'll sort that out themselves. They're in a test tube. But heat, you kind of have to get on with it, that range that they enjoy. It is as simple as that. Once you get them in that range and leave them alone, they should start laying. If they don't, and I will say not all queens will. I've had a queen here, and she's a lovely little lady. We take her out to the shows, not the shows, to the schools with us, and we show her off. and she has never laid a single egg in her life. She's probably about 2 years old now, and she's never laid a single egg, never had an interest in laying an egg. But she's a big old ant, and the kids love seeing her. So, you show them the laciest Niger queen, and then you say, and now look at this one. And they're like, wow. And it really gets the interest going for the ants that, that's the main thing, is getting kids into ants. So that's brilliant. But yeah, not all ants will lay. Some queens just aren't viable. Some just are rubbish. And then some will lay and then leave them alone, and all their eggs will die, and it will be a failed attempt, and it will fail and fail and fail, and they just never learn, and that's the end. So it's not always as easy as it should be, but it should be. Right, let's move on, because we could go round in circles on that one. The workers are killing my queen. What should I do? Now, I've seen this, I've heard of this, I've in fact witnessed it myself. The workers will occasionally pull a queen out of the test tube, out of the nest, and they'll just decimate her in the outworld. They'll sometimes even do it in the test tube or nest. They'll just kill the queens. Quite often they'll tear the legs off. They might even decapitate her and then bring out a dead body. Now, why do they do this? There could be multiple reasons. They could think that the queen's too weak. There could be something wrong with the queen. It could be bacterial sort of thing, and the queen's actually ill, and it could be a risk to the whole rest of the colony. And just out of instinct, they kill the queen like they would any other worker, without realizing it's going to cause their own demise. Now, there is other reasons. Obviously, if it's a multiple queen colony, their pheromones might change, or they might just decide that they want to have it off with that queen. And that, it does happen. There's multiple reasons they might kill your queen. Now, what should you do? Or stress level, or whatever. Mesobarbarus are actually really well known for it. Mesobarbarus will pull the queen out. The queens hate light, so they're trying to get back in the dark, and they'll just tear it apart. Why do they do that? Could be a multiple reasons. Right. So what do you do in these sort of situations? What I tend to do is I tend to just get in there with a paintbrush. If you can separate the workers, see what happens. Just try and get them off the queens, see what you can do. They tend to go straight back. If they're absolutely determined to kill the queen, they are going to kill the queen. I can guarantee you that. If you get in there with a paintbrush, dip it in a little bit of rubbing alcohol first. Do a little line across the enclosure and try and separate your queen. Now, ants don't like rubbing alcohol. I advise leaving the lid off for this as well, because it will form the gas. Ants don't like rubbing alcohol. So as they go across that line, they'll tend to avoid it unless they're in a frenzied mode. And like I say, at which point your queen's pretty screwed. Again, it's one of those. It happens, and you've got to be prepared for that as an ant keeper. There's lots of possibilities that could happen as an ant keeper. Not all your colonies are going to survive. Not all of them are going to do well. It is what it is. And okay, this is a good question. Number 8, our final question that we're going to answer tonight in our FAQs. And this is something I get asked quite regularly, but it's not quite ant related. What is in my sub boxes? Now, the sub boxes, the subscription boxes, are really interesting. You get something different every month. If you sign up for the intermediate or beginner course, it's a 12-month course. The Mesobarbarus one is 4-month. You get something different every month. We'll talk about the 12-month courses because they're easy to talk about. They're split into 3 sections. So each section lasts 4 months. You'll get an ant colony, all the food, all the formicarium, the barrier, and pretty much everything you need. Walkthrough guide, fact sheets, and a fact file to put the fact sheets in, all of that. And then you get the same again in the second, but it's like, so the first one, I'll talk you through it. The first one on the beginner, you get Lacius niger. The second month, I can't remember what you get. The third month, you get a barrier. The 4th month, you get your formicarium. So that's set on every month. You get food as well. You get all the foods every month. You also get your fact sheet every month and the walkthrough every month, but on the first month you get a fact file for your fact sheets as well. Right, so then you go into section 2. Section 2 is like Lacius flavus. We give you the flavus, then we give you bioactive stuff, then we send you the cleanup crew, then we send you the enclosure to build a bioactive environment for your Lasius flavus. And then on the third section, we do Mesobarbarus. I can't remember what it is, but you get all the stuff again. All the foods are so we. By the time you're on the second stage, you're getting all the foods you still need for your Lasius niger, but all the extra foods you need for flavus. Then you start getting the seeds as well. It's all included. You literally get everything, but it's kind of hard to tell you exactly what you get every month because it slightly changes off the top of my head, anyways. But it is really interesting. To be honest, you're going to have to sign up to it if you want to know what you get every month. You're going to have to sign up and do it because it is really great. And if you start from the beginner course, go all the way through to the end of the intermediate, you are going to know a heck of a lot about ants. We've recently rewritten the entire sub boxes, and they are really, really in depth. There's loads of great stuff to find out and learn about in the basic one. And then if you carry on into the intermediate one, you really are going to go deep into ant everything. You're going to know so much about ants. It's going to be painful. You're going to annoy everyone around you because you're going to be talking about ants non-stop because they're so interesting and there's so much to talk about. So yeah, if you want to find out, have a look at the sub boxes on the website. There's lots of information there, and I do, obviously, if you send me an email, I will reply to you in much further detail. But that's a basic rundown of what's there. You get your fact sheet every month, you get your info sheet every month, and then you get 3 different ant colonies and everything you need for them over the space of a year. It's great. You'll find that you end up with loads of extra food, loads of extra barrier, loads of extra sugar stuff. You'll end up with lots of extras as well because it's like, to be honest, we just try and make it really great value for money. Yeah, so that is the end of our FAQs. If you've got any more FAQs or anything you want to ask me, feel free to ask. If not, we are going to move on. Let's talk a little bit about the Weymouth show because that came up earlier and it's on my list. So the Weymouth show went really, really well. Consider it's Weymouth. I was a little bit concerned about Weymouth because it's so out of the way. We've never had an invert show of any kind in Weymouth, let alone my sort of show. So I've made it clear it wasn't an ant show. It was sort of an everything show. There was meant to be Portland Museum. They never actually turned up. It was a massive shame. And the No Thought were meant to be doing a talk alongside the Portland Museum. And obviously, as one didn't come, neither did the other. That's a massive shame because we missed out on that one. But all in all, I say it was a great day. We had some good football. Not as busy as, say, Sheffield. Sheffield was absolutely hectic, and Bristol's going to be absolute madness as well. But for a first Weymouth show, I'm definitely not worried or complaining at all. It was a great show. We had great fun, and everyone that did come said they really enjoyed it. So yeah, we're going to be doing it again, roughly the same time next year. We've already put all the dates out on the website, so it's nice and clear out there. All 3 of our dates for next year. We'll be putting the venues out again real soon, but not releasing that info just yet. I've got things. Oh yeah, right. So I've got some more purchases. Well, I say purchases, it wasn't really. We bought a jumping spider for my daughter. She's never really liked spiders or any of the bugs. This is Kayla. She likes to do the computer work with me, not the bug work. So she's got her own jumping spider now, and she's held it, and she's been really brave, which is super cool. We've also got one of Paul Cook. There you go. We've got one of Paul's tadpoles here. I've forgotten what species it is. Something that I can't pronounce, I expect. But we got one of those tadpoles, so that's going to be a frog at some point, which is super cool. We also have a new snake. Now, we did not get the snake at the show. We were given the snake before the show, but since I haven't seen you since having this snake, I thought I'd tell you about it as well. I've got a snake. It's super cool. It's a hognose. We've called it Steve the snake. He's pretty happy. He did strike at me a couple of days ago, so I've just let him chill. for a couple of days, let him get used to his environment a bit more, and then I'll try again. But he is really cool. I've managed to hold him quite a few times now, even getting him out myself, which was the bit that I was struggling with. But we have managed it. But the other night he did strike at me, so I'm just letting him chill. He's all right. So yeah, that is super cool. We've got a snake. Yeah, Weymouth show, really cool. Come visit it next year. It's going to be even more cool next year. We're going to bring it to the same sort of size as the Bristol and Sheffield show of this year, whereas the Bristol and Sheffield show next year is going to be a lot bigger. Thank you, Paul. Blue, I can't pronounce it. Azores, as as nope. Blue dart frogs. That's what species it is. So let's talk a little bit about the Bristol show, because why not talk about the Bristol show? And I've just realised I haven't even got coffee. Now, I asked for a coffee, but I think the wife forgot. We were talking and stuff. It's probably my fault. Right, but my mouth's getting dry. Oh dear. So the Bristol show gonna be amazing. My days. Well, I cannot wait. I'm super excited already. Obviously, after the show, I'm always excited anyway. But after the Weymouth show and sort of the reaction we've got from the Weymouth show, lots of people there like, you're doing another one in Bristol because it's not that far. Lots of people are going to come, and we know people are coming from Sheffield. We've got some amazing traders, and it's just going to be such a great day. Like the people on the stage is going to be packed all day. Then we've got demos going on around the room all day as well. So things are going to be overlapping a little bit, but I've tried to keep it so that you can run from one to the other pretty much all day. It's going to be absolutely amazing. I can't wait. Although we've only got like 5 ant shops attending, I think 4 of them. Yeah, 3 of them are doing talks or demos or whatever. And it's going to be really good. I cannot wait, to be honest. We're going to have some really interesting stuff going on around the room. Obviously, we'll have our children's entertainers as we always do. I'm not even going to try and hide that now. We are always going to have some form of Batman, Spider-Man, or children's entertainers. We had Ant-Man come to Sheffield. That was pretty intense. Ant-Man and Spider-Man. So we'll always have children's entertainers at our shows. That is one of the things that we love to do. As you know, we like catering for the younger audiences as well. So there will be that at Bristol. There's some other really cool things that we've put into Bristol as well. The room is absolutely packed. I couldn't fit in another trader if I absolutely tried, so don't ask. I assure you, some people have still been asking. I've had to say no, which is really like a transition. Like this time last year, when we were coming up to our first ever Bristol show, and I was like trying really hard to get traders, and then half of them didn't turn up anyways. And now traders are coming to me wanting to come to the shows because they are so cool. We've really we've made it. You know, this is the show where we go back and repeat our first one. Our first, let's be honest, although it was an absolutely amazing show, what it could have been. Lots of people didn't come, lots of traders didn't turn up, but it was still a great show and a great foot off. Now we're coming back a year later, like with 3 shows under our belt now. This will be our 4th show. It's going to be super cool to sort of do it again. We've got some of the same traders. We've got the same face painter, the same ice cream van coming at midday. So yeah, it's really, they're coming back to see how we've improved, what we've got going on. I mean, we had one of the traders from last year's Bristol show come to the Weymouth show, and they're going to be coming to Bristol again this year as well. So that's super exciting. That's Mariposa Jewellery. Make sure you head over to Mariposa Jewellery if you are coming as well. We had a look at the Weymouth show just to say hi, and we ended up buying, my daughters both got like earrings. My wife got something. Oh no, that's it. My daughter got earrings. My other daughter got a necklace, and my wife got earrings. And like just their stuff is really cool. You know, when you buy like jewelry, um, like characters and dinosaurs and stuff like that. Normally, on one side is the picture, and on the other side it's like it's dipped in, and you can see where they've crafted it. Whatever, that's fine. These ones are solid, like they're 3D dinosaurs. So I think that's really cool. They had lots of really cool stuff. So do go over and check out Mariposa Jewellery if you're coming to the Bristol show. I do advise coming to the Bristol show is like really gonna be good. If you are coming, come early. Make sure you're there for the 10 o'clock open because 10:30 we're starting stuff on the main stage. You want to be getting in. There might even be a bit of a queue. There might even be a first few people through the door get a free gift. You'll have to wait and see. But you have to get there early to see that, obviously. So get there for 10 o'clock, even get there for 9:30, sit in the car park for a little bit, have a burger. There's a McDonald's only 15 minutes away. Grab that on your way here, get there nice and early, and get in and grab a few bargains and stuff. It's going to be a great day. I can't wait. I'm going to be there pretty much as soon as you enter. I'm on the right-hand side. You'll be able to see me. It's going to be awesome. Come say hi, basically. Come say hi. Let's talk a little bit about the Polyrachus dives before I say goodnight, because it is getting late and I'm going to have to go to bed at some point. These Polyrachus dives are going through this meat. As I said earlier, they've pretty much destroyed this pork chop. They've destroyed all those sugars. Can't remember when I put that test tube in, but they've managed to push the cotton back into the test tube further with it as well. So it was all the way at the front, like at the start of the tube, you know. There's just so many. And they are building again. The nest is just getting absolutely huge. Good evening, Jose. Am I pronouncing that right? Jose? Because some people have the silent J. So, good evening. Oh dear. So yeah, the Polyrachus dive nest is absolutely insane. I mean, I am filming a video for you, giving you a little bit of an in-depth description about the Polyrachus dives, how I deal with them, how I deal with the tanks, basically, how I maintain the tanks whilst being bitten constantly and attacked by all these crazy ants. It is fantastic. I do love every minute of it, and they are my favourite colony out of my whole collection. Even over the leaf cutters, I do still prefer the bullet, the dives. The bullet ants are probably high on the ranking, but the dives are definitely my favourite, and the leaf cutters are second favourite. It's really hard to say because I've got so many different colonies. The trap jaws are boring as heck. Now, although they're really cool to watch, the jaws, boring as heck. I've got Campanotus, Nikos, and what's that? Japacanus, Ligopigges, Formica rufus, Sanguini, Mimicaruba, Rubida, Barbarus, Anguus, Cosmicos, the two Monomorium, Feds, Structa, Mesa Minor. What else have we got? We've got quite a few on the shelves at the minute. So it's always quite hard to pick a colony. But I will say I do love my dives. Believe it or not, this colony is only about 2.5 years old. Maybe not even that. Maybe 2 years old. They're absolutely insane. But yeah. Has anyone got any questions before we start rounding up for the night? I will continue to talk for another few minutes, but I will start heading towards the end of the stream because it is now 10 o'clock and I think I've just heard my wife cooking my dinner. Oh, which is really quite exciting. Oh, I'm very hungry at the minute. Obviously, these shows absolutely wiped me out. The Weymouth show was a whole week ago now, and I'm still absolutely knackered. It is probably my own fault because I work too hard, I do too much, I don't sleep enough, and I don't eat enough. And then I get to after the show when I start falling, all the adrenaline, up until the show, like the whole week up until the show, adrenaline just carries me through. And then as soon as it's over, it's like, oh my God, I'm tired. It's taken me like a week to recover already, and I'm still knackered. But I am back on it. The shop is reopened. The shop reopened on Wednesday, but obviously I haven't been doing any streams. I haven't been overly active until now. From tomorrow, I will be active on the website, on the chat, whatever, Discord and everything. If you need me at all, just give me a shout. I'll be far more responsive from now. I do promise that. I just needed that little bit. When you normal people take actual breaks from work. Well, I just cannot do that. But I tend to go a little bit quiet occasionally, just when I need a breather. But it is what it is, as I've said a million times tonight. God, that signal is very low at the minute. It's kind of holding out. It's kind of not. We're going with it. I don't know why it's so low. It could well be the pressure, actually. Has anyone else had these thunderstorms at the minute? The thunderstorm's been pretty intense. We had a thunder and lightning storm literally over the town. Was it yesterday or the day before? But there was a picture came out that a boat out in the harbour not in the harbour that they were fishing. A boat actually got struck by the lightning. Now I realised what just happened there. The lights on the tanks are all turning off because it's 10 o'clock. All the lights turn off, and now you're seeing it in its dark form. It's not that dark on screen. If I look over there, I can't see a thing in the tanks because they are pitch black. All the shells to my left actually turn off at 10:30. Don't know why I did that, but I did. And I need to sort the leaf cut ones out, that they should be on a 12-hour timer as well. I've actually taken the lights out of quite a few enclosures recently because isopods don't need them. Obviously, scorpions don't need them. Tarantulas don't need the lights either, really. I just found there's no point in paying the extra lighting bills because what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We've got like 15 different sets of lights in here. That's a lot of power, let alone the heat and everything else we got going on. Whatever. Welcome to my ant room. But yes, so I am back full time. Another storm tonight. In fact, Paul, you saw that storm. I bet you saw that, didn't you? It was intense. Like, the wife and kids were actually scared. I quite enjoy thunderstorms. I'm not that worried. It is what it is. If it hits me, it hits me. There's not a lot you can do about it. Why worry about something you can't do? But another one tonight, that might be interesting. I better go and shut the tent. We've had a tent out in the garden for probably about 2 weeks at the minute, but we just can't bring it in because every time we want to bring it in, it's flooded. At the minute, it is still flooded, so we're going to have to let it flood a little bit more and then let it dry out, and then we can bring it in. But we're not worried about the grass underneath because luckily that's an area where there should actually be gravel, but it's all overgrown. So if it kills the grass underneath, we might actually re-expose the gravel, which I need to pull up, lay a new underlay under. Anyways, it's going to be a big job. Probably not going to do it all this year, but I'd like to tackle those areas, so at least I've got a nice barbecue area for the summer. It's starting to warm up now. I think we're due like a 2-week heat wave. Is that right? Everyone stay safe. Keep an eye on your suntan lotion or whatever you're using. Do not burn. As nice as it is to get a tan, don't be silly. I'm not going to lecture anyone over anything. I'm too easygoing, but stay safe out there and don't overdo it. Apart from that, I'm going to let you all go. Thank you massively for joining me tonight. It's been great fun and another great stream. Massive thank you to my Patreon supporters, as always, and a massive thank you to our sponsors. But you're all absolutely awesome for being here, chatting with me tonight, putting the comments into the stream. It's been really fun and I've enjoyed it. So please do come back again. We're going to be back on Wednesday and Sunday, every Wednesday and Sunday from now on. 8:30 we do the live feeding. 9 o'clock I will be there with the chat to say hello. So please come and say hello back. So as always for me, it's been a brilliant stream, everyone. Great fun. And I'll see you again soon. Thank you very much. Good night.